Kira, and welcome. Welcome to a new monthly show we're going to have on the Fundraising Nest, Leo's Book Club. For those of you who are part of our launch activities, you may have heard during the interview with me and Leo that he's got probably the biggest book collection in this side of the world. So made absolute common sense for Leo's Book Club to begin. I'm introducing Leo today. I don't think he needs much introduction, but from here on in, Leo will introduce himself, do a bit of a review of the book that he's reviewing that month, and then there'll be somebody will jump in and host and ask some questions about the book. I'm hosting this one today, but what we are looking for is for the people in the community to be part of our book club. So if you want to ask the next questions, do comment in this section of the book club when it goes up onto the Community Nest website this Wednesday. But for now, this book that Leo is reviewing this week is The Fundraising Reader. I'm not going to say too much about it, but it's edited by Beth Breeze, Donna Day Lafferty and Pamela Weeping, and was published in 2023. It's a brand new book. It's a monumental work, 560 pages, which will look at various aspects of fundraising, starting with a section titled What is Fundraising? I'm not going to give too much more away. I'm going to hand over to Leo and I will jump back in very soon to find out a bit more about this book. Over to you, Leo.
Thank you, Michelle. Hello, welcome, and kia ora, everyone. Yeah, look, as Michelle said, the book I'm reviewing this week, and it's the first of many book reviews over time, I would hope. It's called The Fundraising Reader, and it's an interesting book. It's a really one of those books. I would best describe it as a Reader's Digest of fundraising books, some of the best fundraising books ever published. What's interesting about the book, as Michelle said, it's 560 pages long. There are over 85 authors represented in this reader. Basically what they've taken is they've taken books from authors from all around the world and they've edited, so you get a summary of what is said in each of those books there. And the topics covered are quite broad-ranging, from what is fundraising, foundations of fundraising success, understanding fundraising practice, fundraising theory and ethics, being a fundraiser, and then the final section is trends and debates about making fundraising better. In each of those sections, you have some of the leading thinkers or authors on those particular topics being involved. The books go back, the earliest book was 1947, Harold Seymour's book, but you have quite a range of authors there, and as I said, they've just taken those books and they've taken edited pieces there, so you get some key insights that come from those books, but you're not getting the whole text. You're just getting part of the text that's published. We go through, I'd like to quote a few of the sections here. The first one I'm looking at, it's by Henry Rosso, first published in 1991, but republished in 2016, and is titled A Philosophy of Fundraising. Well, this is just one small section of that particular chapter. It says, fundraising is a servant of philanthropy. Fundraising is a voluntary action for the public good through voluntary action, voluntary association, and voluntary giving. Fundraising has been a servant of philanthropy across the millennia. Now, if you know Hank Rosso, that's something that he strongly espouses, and it's great to be reminded that fundraising is the servant of philanthropy, and there's so much in that. Another one which I'd like to quote is Harold Seymour from his 1947 book, The Laws of Raising Money. Now, Harold Seymour is, I think, one of the first authors of fundraising, on fundraising. It's the first book published on modern fundraising. And what I find interesting, and I'm hoping in future reviews, to look at one of Harold Seymour's books and look at some of the principles he talks about in his book, and to show how those principles still apply to today. So, for example, in this particular chapter, he talks about, here then are the laws of raising money with which the fundraising fraternity are believed to be in virtually unanimous agreement. And he goes through 7 laws. I'm not going to read them all, but just a couple here, for example. The first one is the quantitative result of every fundraising campaign varies directly with the quality and devotion of the leadership. How true that is today as it was in 1947. I like this one. This is law number 5. To paraphrase Shakespeare, if a campaign were to be done, 'twere well it were done quickly. In communities as in kindergartens, attention periods have their limits. I love that quote. Another one which I found really interesting was, it's titled The Fundraising Audit, and it's by Adrian Sargent and Jane George from a book published in 2022 called The Fundraising Management. And it's a book which I will be reviewing as well. And basically describes the fundraising audit as specifically addresses the first element of a fundraising plan. Where are we now? As such, it is arguably the most critical stage of the whole planning process, since without a thorough understanding of the organisation's current position, it will be impossible for planners to develop any kind of sense of what they can expect to accomplish in the future. So you're seeing here just some key highlights of, if you want, gems, diamonds of ideas really worth looking at. Another one here is by Gerald Panas, who's the godfather of major gift fundraising. And in this particular chapter, he talks about what makes an ideal fundraiser. And he talks about 63 verities. And it's interesting to look, when I read this, I look at myself and see how much of those apply to me. I'm not going to go through the 63, but look at these ones he's talking about. Number 2, he says, you read everything in sight. You read incessantly and compulsively. And I think this is critical. If you are serious about your profession as a fundraiser, reading is very important. Keep up to date with your knowledge. You are undaunted. Your life's philosophy, professionally and personally, is I can do it. There is brazen belief and fiery faith in the possible. Anything can be done. You can do it, and even more divine, you understand that you must do it. There's another one, number 7. Success is always coupled with perseverance. We in fundraising understand that success is a long race, conducted in inches. We face rejection and refusal head on and respond with even greater dedication and determination. Just brilliant. This next chapter I want to quote from is called Neglected Fundraisers in the Charitable Triad. The reason why I want to do this is written together by a very dear friend of mine, colleague of mine, Dr. Cassandra Chapman. She presented at the FIA conference in Sydney, and she talked about the charitable triad theory and how that applies. So she talks about, in this particular chapter of the book, the key tenets of charitable triad theory are as follows. First, giving is triadic because the characteristics of 3 actors, donors, beneficiaries, fundraisers, influence charitable decisions. There's also some interesting article or chapters here which challenge our thinking. And this one I think is one that is an interesting one by Vu Li, published in 2017, updated in 2020. How donor centrism perpetuates inequity. Writes, I believe in many of the tenets of donor centrism. Don't treat donors like ATMs. Appreciate every gift of any amount. Don't take donors for granted. Build relationships and be transparent, etc. I just don't believe that donors should be in the center of nonprofit work or even the center of fundraising work. I'll talk about what Dr. Cassandra Chapman talked about is triadic. It's also the beneficiary. Finally, want to look at, this is one of the last chapters of the book, 7 Trends to Watch, and it's by Penelope Cagney and Bernard Ross. I don't know if you know Bernard Ross, but Bernard's written a number of just fantastic books. This was published in 2023. And some of the trends he talks about, look, for example, at Trend 2. Non-profit innovations in fundraising and elsewhere are no longer just coming from the United States or Europe. There are exciting and challenging innovations growing up in fundraising in India, in China, Argentina, and Kenya. I can speak for India because I've been there several times, and this is so true. We often just think it's happening in the US or UK, or even maybe in Australia, but certainly we're seeing fundraising growing in Asia. So that's just a few of the materials and gems that you find. Let me finish off by quoting from the introduction. And I think this is really important for you to understand in regard to this book. The editors write, we strongly encourage all readers to retrieve the original piece and read it in full. There are so many other interesting and helpful elements in all the edited readings that we are able to include here. And the full original texts provide greater context, more depth, additional illustrations, complete bibliographic details, and other things that curious reader will find useful. So this book is a great book. It's great in terms of if you can't build a huge library, at least you've got some key text there. But if you find a text there really worth reading, go to the original, get it, and read it thoroughly.
Leo,
so I can highly recommend this book to you.
Brilliant, thank you. So before we just do a little wrap up, I just want to tease out some of those things as I was listening there. Going back to the first one, with Harold Seymour, when you talk about fundraising as a servant of philanthropy, that's very familiar to you.
And sorry, Michelle, that's Hank Rosso.
Oh, it was, sorry.
Yes.
It's servant of philanthropy. I'm often asked, what's the difference between fundraising and philanthropy? And when I describe it, that's exactly what I'm actually describing. But can you just tease out maybe for some of our younger or newer fundraisers, what that looks like in practice? A tangible kind of servant of philanthropy. I think I understand, but could you explain it in kind of how you see it?
They go hand in hand. Fundraising of philanthropy, which is people giving to help causes or needs that the causes are meeting, doesn't happen without fundraising. If you don't ask, you don't get. And so that's why the two go hand in hand.
Yeah, they're the flip sides of the same coin, eh?
Yes, we do fundraising in order to encourage philanthropy. And philanthropy doesn't just have to be big donations, they could be small donations. Anybody who gives to help a cause, a need, to meet a need, they're practicing philanthropy. And that is achieved through fundraising.
Interesting. It's it is definitely coming more around to that holistic idea rather than for me fundraising and philanthropy have felt quite separate as I was learning fundraising, but actually they're way closer together.
Absolutely.
I'm going to pick up on another couple of questions in there. I think it was really Adrian Sargent's from the fundraising audit. The first element of fundraising is to understand where are we at now. Absolutely fundamental. How many organisations put on the spot might struggle to answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the interesting things I've been doing fundraising audits since 1995. And one of the interesting things about that is unless you can identify not just where you are now, but what are the issues that exist now, then you can put together the best fundraising plan in the world. But unless you identify what the issues are now, those plans will just not happen. They won't be carried out.
Absolutely. Lots of nuggets there for us. So this is the kind of book I think if maybe you haven't read an entire fundraising book from beginning to end, this is quite a good introduction for you because you're getting bite-sized kind of summaries
Yes,
of much bigger pieces, and that will give you an insight into the kind of book you might want to go into for your first book. Would that be right?
that is totally correct. Absolutely.
Brilliant. And the is it an easy read? For people that don't like reading, is it quite easy to digest?
It's like Reader's Digest, extremely easy.
Brilliant. That's absolutely great.
Yeah.
Um, and the final question I might have on this book is we're going to potentially give all our stars out of all our books a star rating. What would you rate this book out of 5?
Um, I would certainly give it 4.5 out of 5.
Yep, ticks all the boxes.
Ticks
Um,
just about all the boxes. There are a couple of texts I would have liked to have seen included, but which is why I've sort of knocked it down a little bit.
yeah,
Uh, but otherwise, I just think, particularly, I mean, I also would want to encourage even people who are not into fundraising, anybody who's interested in fundraising. This is
board
certainly
members.
board members, CEOs. This is a book that I think they should look at.
Yeah, and a book you can jump in and out of, and you don't have to read beginning to end. I think that appeals
No,
to a lot of people, isn't it? The idea of sitting down to read a book. This is the one for you if you want to jump in and grab the best bits from some of the best people from the last, 1947. That's a long history of amazing information. Leo, thank you for our very first book review. The book was
no
The
problem.
Fundraising Reader, and thank you so much for this month's book review. And like I said before, if you would like to be the next host of our book club, and just let us know. Get in touch with us at the Fundraising Nest. I would love to hand this over to our community, and we'll hopefully have a new host each month. Leo, thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle.
Now you need to go and find your next book you're going to read for us, but I'm sure you're not going to be stuck for choice.
I've got thousands of books to choose from, so no problem.
You sure do. All right, until next time. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Michelle. Bye, everyone.